This is a Bulldog Radio podcast.
It's the MVSP Season 3, Episode 48. I'm Joe Nagy, along with Brandon Worth sitting across from me. Brandon, we got a great guest coming on the show today. Kyle Ososki, our buddy from Sports Communications in our major, as well as he works for athletics with us. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, great to have you, and what a great day to have you on with a huge night of implications ahead in hoops, as well as some great matchups this weekend. We'll get into the Ferris State previews and more, including the college basketball situations with Juwan Howard. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first, shout out to Bulldog Radio for making this show possible. Without their help, we would not be able to make this podcast. So if you want to make your own, whether it's about news, I mean, there's a lot of news going around right now, so
we might get drafted in the World War III, boys.
Oh, boy.
Already.
Oh, boy. Well, anything along that, you can contact them and start your podcast today. Me and Joe did just 2 years ago, and look where we are now.
Look at us. Who would have thought?
Not me.
Exactly.
But anyway, into the Ferris State Sports Report we go. The previews, championship night, the big one. Michigan Tech is in town, 5:30 for the women's, 7:30 for the men's. Both of them, huge conference implications ahead.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're both tied right now, first in the GLIAC, 15-3. So if we win today, I think we're outright because we already beat them once already in the beginning of the season. So even if we are tied, we get the lone top of the GLIAC. So that's a big implication. Loss against Purdue Northwest earlier, which was a tough one to deal with. So I think the guys are going to be ready to bounce back. It's going to be rocking in the wing tonight. I'm pretty excited. Kyle, I know you like it when the wink gets rocking. You're going to be filming. Are you pretty excited for it?
Oh, yeah. The energy, especially for the Grand Valley game, was the best energy I've felt in that stadium in a minute. And it just the players, I like watching the post games, they all talk about how much it helps them play and everything, and it brings the win out of them. So, yeah, it's awesome when that place is rocking.
I'm excited because, like, especially with Walt kind of coming off a really good week, I think he's going to kind of carry that over. If we can get the three-point scoring, we're going to be solid. I think we're due for a big three-point game. We haven't really seen that from a lot of our guys yet, where, like, multiple guys are scoring 3-4 apiece. So I think we're due for that, especially with, the implications. The guys are going to get ready. I know Coach Bronkema has some, understanding like this is probably the biggest game of the season so far. It is the biggest game of the season so far. And, if you can win GLIAC outright, with the big crowd, I think that's going to be a huge boost for March coming up, especially with, conference tournament. We don't want to have what happened last time. And, if we win tonight, we host it as well. So there's a lot of implications, and I think the guys understand, what's going to go on tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, last time when we took the trip up to Holton, I mean, we played pretty well defensively. I know Michigan Tech, I believe, had some guys that were out for various reasons, but we also did too. Logan Ryan was not in that game earlier this season, so he's going to have a great outing against this team. And, I mean, you're looking at what Michigan Tech brings to the table. I mean, they're going to shoot the rock. They're a good shooting team just like us. They got some great scorers from outside the three-point arc with Carl and Simonson. They're two of the top shooters in the GLIAC from outside. So they're going to bring that element to us. And I mean, Trent Bell is going to be one that we're going to have to watch down low. But I mean, when we have the ability to turn that defense into offense in transition, that's what makes us so lethal. That's what makes this team so good, and that's something that we haven't seen necessarily. Kind of looking back at what the road games that we had just this last week against Parkside and Northwest, it was a little bit slow. And, I mean, not as much energy. I think coming back to Wink, that's where we kind of get that spirit reback, and we need the fans to really help this team because this is a perfect time to get out of that slump because, I mean, next week, it's on. Win or go home. Especially
with the GLIAC tournament coming up. And I think we're not locked, but I think we have a really good chance of making the actual national tournament. So, but, got to get a win against Michigan Tech and got to get hopefully a win against Northern Michigan following the Michigan Tech game. That one's going to be tough, too. They're always a perennially tough opponent regardless of their record or schedule or whatever. They're 10-8 right now. I think they're going to be hosting they're traveling to Lake Superior State this weekend, so or today actually. So that's going to be a tough game for them. Lake Superior State is up there in the GLIAC standings as well. I don't know. I haven't really seen too much Northern Michigan, so I'm not really sure what to expect for Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, they were part of that trip up north as well. I mean, we were able to beat them. I believe it was like 76-63, I think was the final. I mean, we played pretty well. I mean, I don't think we played to our best that we've seen comparably to some other games this season. But, I mean, that was another great defensive effort from Arts, and I think that can carry over against that type of a team. They haven't had as much success this year overall as Tech has. I believe that they're middle of the standings right now, somewhere around like
they are 10-8.
500 in the conference, somewhere in there, if I remember.
They're technically tied third with Grand Valley, but there's also 4 teams ahead of them that have the same record.
Oh, okay.
Or we have the same record as Michigan Tech, and then Lake Superior and Saginaw have the same record at 11-7.
Yeah. So 10-8, and then 14-11 overall. They're a good team, but they're sneaky. We know that. Don't need to bring it up. So I mean, it's gonna have to be lay the hammer down. Doesn't matter. Nameless, faceless opponent. Play your game and get back on track.
And a positive I see here is that recently, I mean, Walt's been scoring all year, but recently he's just been getting back to the Walt from the beginning of the season.
The old Walt that we've been seeing.
Scoring 25 points a game, and I feel like if he can do that and then Ben comes off the bench and he does his part and everybody plays their roles, I don't see anybody really stopping them.
And like I said before, like guys are due for a big game. Like Ethan Erickson really hasn't had a game where he's, really gone off at the 3-point since the start of the season. Like he's kind of been slowing down a little bit. So I think he's due for a game sometime this weekend. Hopefully he can do it tonight, if not at Northern. But, guys like Dorian and Lee, they've been pretty much the consistency that we've been needing when Walt's kind of been in the slump a little bit. Bejas has been a pleasant surprise so far. I mean, he scored 20 last game. So there's a lot of guys who have done it before, and I think if they can really rally behind and have big games, they share the rock a little bit and kind of spread it out, spread the floor, we're going to be pretty solid. But some teams playing around the GLIAC this weekend. We already mentioned Northern Michigan is going to be traveling to Lake Superior State, but Grand Valley is going to be going to Wayne State at 7:30 today. Davenport is going to be taking on Saginaw Valley. Saginaw is going to try to get a little bit better seeding for the GLIAC tournament coming up with a good win against Davenport, and then Purdue Northwest and Northwood are going to be taking on each other in a low part of the GLIAC matchup, so we'll see what happens there. And then after that, Saturday, Michigan Tech is going to be going to Lake Superior State. Northern is going to be coming to town against us. Parkside is going to be taking on Northwood. Grand Valley is going to be taking on Saginaw, and Davenport is going to be going up against the Warriors of Wayne State.
Yep. I hear one common word that we all said throughout that entirety of that preview. Do.
Yeah,
that's what this team is.
Due for
a good one. Too bad that's not the wordle of the day, because we would have nailed that first.
I know
try.
the wordle of the day, but I'm not going to spoil it.
Oh, we can't spoil it. What's your stats?
I have not. I'm on like a 8 streak right now. Ooh. I have not lost one.
Okay.
I started in when we were talking about that in our journalism class, and I did it. Got it in like 2 tries. I have not gotten to the last row yet. So we'll see what happens.
He's hooked. Kyle, you have any better stats?
No, I've yet to play the game. I've been avoiding it because I feel like it's just going to frustrate me.
Smart man.
I heard that after the New York Times took over, though, the words are harder. So
that's probably fair.
I heard they ruined it.
Yeah, technically that means I'm better than everybody because I started playing after New York Times took it over, and I have not lost. So
okay.
I'm not saying anything, but you know what the implications are.
This is the guy that wins one, and then he's the champion. No, I'm just kidding.
No, he gets his 8th streak and then doesn't play for another week just to say he has 8 streak.
I played this morning and I got it in 4 tries.
What's the word then?
I'm not telling you.
Oh, okay.
You want me to tell you right now?
No, we can't spoil it.
I'll say it.
Maybe
put some dirt on my name again. I'll spoil it.
Let's dump it in this podcast. People have to listen to it, and then they can find out the word. We'll just sneak it in there one of these times.
It starts with a B.
Okay, let's stop there. Anyway, over to the women's side. Same opponents, same days, just different times. And just as important of games, I mean, right now sitting tied with Wayne State at 2nd right now for the GLIAC conference standings, which, by the way, they're playing GV. So technically, there's a huge chance that we can slip up into number 2, and that would be absolutely huge. Obviously, number 1 out of the question, thanks Grand Valley, but we'll see you in the tournament for a rematch.
Yes, sure.
But it's going to be a good game. I mean, we've seen a lot from this Tech program in the past. They've been in a little bit of a downfall compared to what we've seen. I mean, last year they were one of the more dominant teams giving GV a run. This year, not necessarily the same, but still got some great players. Rondorf, McKay, they played really well against us up in Holton the first time around when we won by 6. But that was a game that we started off fast. 50 first half points. We're going to need stuff like that early on to get the momentum in our way. and being able to carry that over with good defensive play in the second half, that was a recipe for success the first time on December 11th. See if we can try to do it again tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited, especially with Michigan Tech kind of being a little middle-of-the-road team, as well as Northern Michigan. They're on the lower part of the GLIAC standings so far. These are two very winnable games. I think if Mallory and Caden have a pretty good game, if Mallory's able to open the floor with her passing, we've seen her court vision abilities are very impressive. And, I mean, if Chloe has another great weekend where she's able to fill it up from down low and, get some rebounds and really be a force down there, we're going to be pretty solid. And I think it's our game to lose, especially, closing out the season with a homestand. It's going to be pretty solid.
Yeah, I feel like the strong points for the women's team, just watching them play, is like, I feel like we score so much off of defensive turnovers and then into fast breaks. Mm-hmm. And then when it's not those fast breaks, it's just the perimeter shots, the 3 points. And I feel like if they can keep that consistent, just the defense to fast breaks, I don't see us losing to Michigan Tech.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a great observation. The points off turnovers has definitely been an emphasis on this team. Especially on some of the previous games, especially at home against Northwood, we were able to excel in that category. So being able to take defense and turn it into offense, kind of like what we were just talking about with on the men's side as well, has been huge for this team. Defensively, this team has showed us a lot over this past second half of the season. We're starting to see lower opponent scores, and we're starting to see higher offensive scores, which is really good to see here at the end of the season. Being able to score and being able to turn defense into offense is going to be huge. But transition game will be fun to watch because obviously Tech might play. They might try to play us faster, then you never know. I mean, there's a lot that can happen between now and December 11th in game plan, so definitely going to be something to watch. But I mean, they're going to be really hungry because they're in a position right now where they're looking at. And with that, there was 10. They're 10-7 right now in the conference. They're tied with Saginaw Valley, and Parkside's 12-7 at the 4 spot. So theoretically, they still have a chance to host, and at least for the quarters. But they could still fight for that spot, and that could give them a much more favorable matchup. But they're still going to have something to play for, so they're going to come out steaming. I mean, we saw what some teams have done with that, like Parkside ended up getting us at their place last week. So there's going to be some momentum to try to get us while we're down a little bit. But if we play our game, we're going to be all right. And I mean, just being able to see what Coach Westendorp's team does here in March.
Yeah, excited, especially with the GLIAC tournament coming up. That one's going to be pretty solid. Not sure if we have. I think we'll maybe host the opening round.
Well, it'll be the home team is the higher seed in the quarters, and then once the teams get to the semis, they take the high seed and they host semis and finals. So theoretically,
we'll probably but we'll probably host the first one, our first game.
Yes,
because they'll travel here, right?
Yes, as of now, where the standings are now, if we were inevitably to be the 3 seed, we'd be playing Tech, ironically, here at Wink next week, but. Saginaw Valley is also tied. Northwood's a game behind them, and Parkside could drop 2 in a row. So you never know with how hot they've been. They could just fall off because we've seen that. We've seen that happen with our guys. So it's definitely possible. But need those good games. Big tune-up opportunity, being able to hit those key shots and play well on your home floor. Great for both teams to bounce back after what they would consider probably sub-average performance on the road last week.
Yeah, not the greatest performances, but that's what home courts are for. That's what the home fans are for, getting behind you no matter what. So I'm pretty excited for that. We can hop in now onto the ice. The men's hockey team is going to be traveling to Northern Michigan, all the way up to Marquette. That's going to be a good game for them. Hopefully the weather's not too bad, so that way the bus ride isn't super long. But this is a big game, one that we can kind of get a little bit of momentum going into the CCHA playoffs. Northern is only a couple of points ahead of us. We are not really in a spot where we can catch them at all. We're locked at the I think the 7th spot in the CCHA. But regardless, I mean, we almost beat Northern earlier in the year, so I think this is more of a pride game as well as just getting ready for the postseason. And these are 2 winnable games, except at Northern they got a great student section, they got a great culture there, so it's going to be 2 games where our guys got to really pick it up, and I think we can get a dub here.
If we play the way we played against Tech this weekend, I don't see us losing. Like we stayed with them. We had the lead into the 3rd both times, and they both ended in a tie. But they're also ranked 14th in the nation.
At the time, they were ranked 10th. Friday we lost 3-2, but Saturday we tied, and then they won in the shootout. But like, yeah, Michigan Tech is a much better team than Northern Michigan, and we outplayed them for at least 4 of the 6 periods. It's just the 2 periods that they outplayed us were third period.
Yeah, you could see it in the box score. I mean, you have more goals than the other. You're outplaying the other team, right?
Yeah.
That's just basic math. But no, I agree. I mean, it sucks. We're stuck at 7. I mean, that's kind of inevitable. We're going to play the Huskies next week regardless, or the first round of CCHA, I should say. But there's no reason to take this game as like, oh, whatever, this game, we're just rolling it over and we'll get Tech next week. There's a good reason to play well in this game because, I mean, we could foil Northern Michigan's plans because, I mean, they're sitting right now at 32 points after some big wins against Bowling Green, who's at 33 points, and also Lake State, who's at 33 points. So there's a huge shuffle there. And, of course, I mean, we would love the best matchup if we ended up pulling off the upset against the Huskies, going to face off against either possibly Bemidji, and then we could play Bowling Green if that gets flipped, and we've beaten Bowling Green, right? So now you're looking at favorable matchups that we would prefer in that scenario. But there's definitely going to be one thing for sure. It's probably going to turn into who can score the most. That's the way that the first matchups went at home, and Northern Michigan's played that way all season long. They've actually allowed more goals than us this season, but they have scored more. So that's going to be interesting to see. But in reality, I think they're going to be good games, but I think Kyle's right. I mean, if we play like we did at Tech, I mean, there should be no reason we can't beat this team. I mean, we played so well last week, and I mean, Northern, they're coming off some good wins, but I mean, it can be different going from a road stand back to a home stand. So it's going to be interesting to see how they adjust, and I mean, I'm really excited to see if this offense can stay hot because they really came in clutch against Tech. It's just the better offense overall prevailed.
Yeah, the one thing, too, is just like the defense. I think we got to pick it up a little bit. Northern Michigan doesn't have quite the same offensive scheme as Michigan Tech does. They're not really a give-and-go type team. They're more of like the, power it down into our zone, get set up. We kind of what we do, just they're better at it. I guess they don't really dump and chase. They're more of just like bringing around the back and kind of
speed sets, yeah.
Yeah, speed sets. And I think that's the one thing that our defense can kind of shut down a little bit better because although, when the puck gets moved around, we kind of seem to lose it a little bit. We are able to really kind of cut down on those fast breaks and those breakaways that we really haven't been seeing too much when we're at home. So that's the one thing that we can really look forward to. But these 2 games pretty pivotal for Northern Michigan in their standings. They're going to be trying to win too. So I mean, 2 teams really want to win it. We'll see who comes out on top at the end of the weekend.
Yeah, I've noticed that Ferris is very good at putting in rebounds. Mm-hmm. Off of long shots, either short shots, it doesn't matter. There's always somebody standing there ready to put the puck in as soon as it knocks off the goalie. We've
cleaned up the garbage a lot. The one thing, though, that we definitely got to have is someone on the backside, on the back door.
Yes.
Because there's been multiple times where the puck has just kind of been squibbling out past the pad, but we got nobody on the back post. And I think if we're able to put somebody there or get somebody to just really dive for it or something, we're going to be pretty solid there. But like I said, we haven't been really doing that all year. But every time we have had somebody sit there, there's been a goal. So hopefully Coach Daniels and the boys will be able to figure that out and really shock Northern Michigan up at home and come back and get ready for Michigan Tech.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be big, and I mean, really, we're in the spot now, time to go, right? And it's really now or never looking into next week. So it's going to be a tough match because, I mean, Northern's obviously going to be a good team, but the way we're playing, we're sitting at a good spot. I feel like if we knew we were coming into this game with a loss, like this is probably the best case scenario where you'd come in playing so hardly and so well against a Tech team that's number 2 in this conference, number 14 in the country. So we're coming in on a good spot. Hopefully we can roll this over and kind of break this road losing streak, get back to the way we played at Bemidji, and silence out the crowd and play our game and get 2 wins. That would be huge for confidence going into next weekend.
And some pretty heavy implications for the teams that might be losing this week. Bowling Green's going to be flying up to the Sioux to take on Lake Superior State. So those 2 teams, whoever loses really is going to basically give Northern a chance to jump up in the standings. So this is kind of it's a worst case scenario for both teams. They probably didn't want to be facing each other at this point. But if either team's able to get the sweep, then they have a lock on who's going to be hosting at least the first round for their place. But then Minnesota State's going to be going to across the Dairyland of America. They're going to be going across Wisconsin over to Michigan Tech. They're going to be taking them on. Michigan Tech's going to try to win that one because the Mavericks are already outright, but Huskies kind of wanted to win that one. So we'll see what happens there. And then Bemidji is going to be hosting St. Thomas. And St. Thomas is probably going to be wanting to get one win to close out the season, or the regular season, before they head into conference tournament play. Not sure if they'll be able to do that, but Bemidji's got a little bit riding on the line, because if there's a sweep, or if there's by chance a split, we'll see what happens.
If they slip, that's a worst case scenario, going into possibly falling down to a 4 seed against St. Thomas, and then you have a team, hypothetically, either Lake Superior State, Bowling Green, whoever wins there gets pushed up. Now you're going to be playing one of those two teams that's mad that they weren't able to get the wins on the last weekend and fall into that road category, that are going to come in even more motivated than possibly the other way around. So, and now then you also have obviously we're not going to plan on this happening, but you could also have Northern Michigan flip up if they got one against us. But obviously we would love to keep them at 32 and stick them there after the regular season. So It's going to be fun. All the coverage will be online, live stats and more, as well as Harrison Watt, Scott Kendra on the call. It'll be a fun weekend of hockey up there in Marquette. But finally, moving out in the Ferris State Sports Report, track and field, shout out my crew. We're going to be at Allendale.
Yes, sir.
Saturday, Sunday, GLIAC Championships. Going to be fun. The fastest of the fastest will be in action. And it's going to be a quick weekend. Going to be a lot of good things hoping to see, a lot of high team scores, and
you running this weekend?
I'll be in the 3K Sunday.
Yes, sir.
So
run fast.
We somehow snuck in.
Sprint the whole way.
Yep. Sprint and then sprint some more.
Yep.
Is this your last race before you can finally get outside?
This will be the last indoor race, and then we'll be back in outdoor late
How
March.
much of how much of off season is that? Like 1 or 2 weeks?
From running or from racing?
Just like racing. There's no off season because you're training, but like
a month basically.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll have a couple days, almost a week.
You guys open in Kentucky?
We'll be in Kentucky or East Lansing. We don't know yet.
Yeah,
Stay
I could imagine
for that.
I'm gonna say Kentucky is probably sounding even better, because weather right now, these past couple weeks, especially by March, you have no clue what's gonna happen.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm assuming we'll have split squads, so there will be some that travel to one and some travel to the other. That's why we have the both. Yeah. So it'll be good for everybody to get back into their level of competition wherever they have, especially for some that have been injured over indoor that are rehabbing and are planning to go to outdoor, that they'll have some better quality races for them on their first races back. For that as well. So they're going to be fun this weekend. Softball is going to be in action. They're actually going to be playing tonight. They're going to be playing 2 games. They're going to have Ursuline and McKendree tonight over at the Lewis Dome Invitational near Chicago. And then they'll have a couple games on Saturday as well as... do they play on Sunday as well? No, they do not. But tennis plays on Sunday. Shout out to them.
Yep, you're covering that one, aren't you?
I am.
That'll be fun.
Question mark?
That'll be a blast.
I guess I might want to find out if I am. I thought that was Jeffrey, actually.
I thought Jeff was doing women's basketball. Either way, we'll figure it out.
Oh.
I don't know. I'm doing men's basketball, so at least I know that.
Well, looks like we got some figuring out to do. But anyway, all the stuff will be online at ferrisstatebulldogs.com. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, was Juwan Howard's suspension worth it? Stay tuned. Over the past 2 years, this show has changed a lot. But one thing that has always stayed the same is our podcast platform and distributor. Anchor.fm is the one-stop shop to create, distribute, and monetize your podcast all for free. There's built-in uploading options and editing tools so that you can make and create and publish your episodes with ease and have all sorts of exclusive options as well as sponsorships, subscriptions, and even monetize ads as well. You can have all the analytics, all the insights to make your show number one. So if you're thinking about making a podcast, look first at Anchor by Spotify. That's anchor.fm.
And we're back from our quick break that we had to take. Got to go to the bathroom, fill up a water bottle. You know how it is. Maybe chat a little bit before we hop into the second half of the show. But we're going to hop into some more college basketball. The Juwan Howard situation. Michigan versus Wisconsin. Juwan Howard threw a punch post-game. Hate to see it. But then there's some other stuff that we got to talk about. A Wisconsin coach doing a little bit of a chop block. Who's in the right? Who's in the wrong? We got a lot to talk about, fellas. Brandon, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so, first of all, as Michigan fans, of course, everyone's going to take to bias to this. I'm going to try to not be biased on this situation. 'Cause I do think that Juwan Howard deserved to be suspended. I don't think anybody can argue about that.
Yeah, if you throw a punch.
Yeah, he threw a punch. And, I mean, with everything that's kind of been instigated already, some of the other incidents he's had this year definitely can result in that suspension. I think the 5 games is good. I think that's kind of the reasonable for that whole scenario, because I don't think he was necessary. I mean, it wasn't like a brawl or anything. I mean, really, shout out to everybody that stopped that situation, because, I mean, when you got a coach that is getting into it with another coach, that's almost like as like players, you're like, oh, okay. This is real. Like we're gonna get into a fight. Like I heard on the Pat McAfee show, it's like your coach gets in, green light, start throwing haymakers. That's the kind of what you're waiting for in those scenarios. But I mean, they kept it calm for a little bit. I mean, a couple suspensions, obviously, with like Diabate got a game, Terrence Williams got a game. I think it was Neath for Wisconsin got a game, and then obviously 5 games and what was it, $40K? I think was the number that Juwan got, and then Greg Gard got a $10,000 fine with no suspension. I mean, I definitely would say that. I mean, both teams, you could definitely say unprofessional is definitely a word for how this got out of hand for such a simple scenario. So the people that don't know, it was all regarding him to take a timeout with 12 seconds left because, according to Greg Gard, he didn't want his second team guys to get the 10-second call, which also apparently there's a rumor that the referee told him to take a timeout. I'm not going to get into that scenario because that's way too far out there, and boy, is that going to be messed up if that was true. But they took the timeout. Howard obviously hates it, right, because they're down double digits, 12 seconds to go. End the game, let's go, let's move on. But they take the timeout. Juwan's not happy. They want to go through the line. Juwan and them finally meet at the end, and it looked to me like Juwan wasn't necessarily looking to have the conversation with him.
Yeah, more of just like a good game, see you later.
Yeah,
like
I don't want
to talk to you. Yeah, and it does look like Greg Gard went out to grab him and to confront him about the situation, which, I mean, I understand his point of view of like, hey, I want to tell you what I was going through, right? I'm not trying to excuse you guys, which obviously we know Juwan's background and the way that he played back, in the 90s, right? That was not necessarily what they were thinking back in those days as far as how you were with opponents, right? Like trash talk, we're going to let our play do the talking, but we'll let you know afterwards in the parking lot, right? So he's kind of in that mode of, I'm not going to talk to you about this. Like, we can sell this another time. But when you're going to confront me, I'm not going to back down. Which, I mean, you should be happy about as a Michigan player, right? I mean, every dude. I mean, yesterday's game, obviously, we'll get into Rutgers, where they all wore the black socks and the black shoes, was for Juwan, right? The Fab Five. He was for him for not being there. So that was kind of interesting. But when you have that scenario of them stopping him, and then obviously they're getting into the words, and then here comes the assistant that's been chirping all game. And then he gets into it, and that was obviously the one that Juwan swung, I should say. It wasn't really a punch. It was more kind of like
more of like
come here, I'm going to grab you. It turns into a half
it's just
slap
that his hand is so
thing.
big that it literally took up the whole side of his face.
Yeah, like a face wash.
I think he was more trying to just push his face away, but he got pushed while he did it, so it kind of it was kind of like a slap. But I think, he was trying to face wash and push him away or whatever, because that Wisconsin coaching staff, I think when that all went down, I'm not trying to be biased, I don't think they handled that very well, because with that assistant then kind of talking to him, and then the other no-name assistant that did the crotch chop.
Jim Snyder.
Yeah.
That's his
guy.
name. He's the strength and conditioning coach. What example are you setting in that scenario?
Yeah, it's there's a point where you can be behind your coach and get behind him and not make it so that way he's getting pushed around or anything. You got to defend him, but when you have all those people and all those eyes on you in a packed Wisconsin gym, that's not great. Especially now you're getting caught on camera and you're doing a chop block to another team. I'm all for trash talk and being able to leave it on the floor or whatever, but that's just that's just very inappropriate and unprofessional.
Before that whole incident, if you look at it from the fans' perspective, it's Michigan's fault. Yeah. But as soon as you make examples like that, you guys are both at fault a little bit.
As soon as you watch it over, it's Wisconsin's coach grabbed Juwan in the line, not viciously. He just grabbed his arm and kind of pulled him a little bit. And then I think that's what Juwan was mad about. I was I don't want to talk to you right now. And then when that happened, it's like, all right, let's go. Like, I'm not going to back, like you said, Brandon, he's not going to back down. I mean, Juwan's part of the Fab Five. He was part of the 90s NBA. That's like the hardest. 90s NBA is probably the toughest anybody's ever played basketball.
Yes, thank you.
Agreed.
So, like, when you're going up against Juwan Howard, you know that, and if, especially in a tense situation like that, could have been handled a lot better on both sides. But, I mean, adrenaline's running, and, like, you know, you just won against a Michigan team who is a little bit lesser than what they have been, and you know Wisconsin's actually pretty good this year, so like it, and then you got a huge home crowd that's like revving it up a little bit, so there's that. But you know, could have been handled a lot better, but also adrenaline's pumping, so you can't really blame it on that. You can blame it on them, but like also you gotta like understand, like when you have those type of situations, it's tough to know what's right and what's wrong when, like you got all that stuff going on.
Here's the thing, I know what Juwan did, right? I know exactly, and he deserves to be suspended. I will say as a Michigan fan, like, that's unprofessional, all right? You got to keep your cool, and he hasn't done that, and he needs to have that little wake-up call. What, Greg Gard not getting suspended, okay, that's fine. I mean, you would probably only give him a game, if that, and really what he did, he instigated the scenario, but, you know, yeah, I mean, obviously, what else would you have done in that scenario that would have not escalated the situation? You don't know, right? I mean, I don't have a problem with him not being suspended. What I do have a problem with is we got the assistant coaches out here that are instigating half of this stuff, because he wasn't going after Gard in that whole punching scenario. It was an assistant that wouldn't shut his mouth about it.
Yeah.
And he would not stop. And then you got the strength and conditioning coach, who's also, I'm pretty sure it's in their job description, to try to prevent these issues.
Yeah.
Throwing a crotch chop at the entire team as they walk away because they think that it's all over, and that's just kind of the, you know, suck it, move on, and you guys suck, right, kind of a thing. And it's like, yeah, what is that supposed to mean? Like, what does that represent to anything of this scenario? Like, that just makes you look worse, honestly. That just made me lose respect for Wisconsin even more, because, I mean, they played a good game. They beat us. They outright beat us. That's fine. I mean, they're a great team. They're 13 in the country. Johnny Davis has been great. That team is phenomenal. But when you have that sort of stuff coming on the side, now it's like, what do we respect you as a team now? Like, yeah, you're a good basketball team, but some of the things that you did, and I'm not saying Michigan's not that way either. I mean, we've shown that we play with some emotion. That's fine. And I don't have a problem with either team showing that, but the way that this whole thing came about just was so just unprofessional for both sides, and it was really a shame. And it was just I don't have a problem with the coaches, like the punishments there. I just have a problem with, you know what, the assistants get a slap on the wrist, who really instigated the entire media presence of this situation. Because we know Howard swung, but there was more that went out than just that. That's my problem.
You got to be the bigger man.
Yes.
And I think when you look at, like,
everybody needed
especially
to be.
especially with a timeout situation, like, if I was a coach in that situation and my bench players were about to get a 8-second penalty or whatever, or a 10-second penalty or whatever it's gonna be, I would let them get it, because then it's them to understand, like, I got a lot to work on. No wonder I'm a bench player, because I can't beat a press, and I can't get across the half when I get in. Like, that's the one thing that, like, I feel like sparing his players' feelings to the point where, like, they don't get a turnover put on them is, like, I would just be like, well, that sucks. Get better at the game. I don't know, like that's like what I would. That's what I always think with, like, people who, you know, are a little bit, or like when they get like bailout, I guess, with some type of, when things in sports, like, I don't think like you should get bailed out. Like, you should just take it off the chin and get better at the game. And I mean, you're a D1 basketball player. Like, you shouldn't get caught behind the line. Like, unless the press is like locked down, and Michigan's press has not been locked down all season. It's just because they were a little bit less prepared. And I think, especially with the time on the clock and the coach calling the timeout, he should understand why Juwan's mad and why he doesn't want to talk to him. And I think when you go up to a guy who's a foot taller than you and you grab him firmly by the arm and pull him a little bit to, like, stop from passing you, you know that something's going to happen. He's not going to, like, sit back or whatever, because Juwan's a competitor. All of Michigan's are competitor, and everybody in D1 sports are competitors. They want to win. So when they lose, they got a bad taste in their mouth. It's not like you're going to – people can say, like, oh, you can lose in grace, but, like, losing sucks. Like,
yeah,
losing is not fun. So why would you try to, like, prolong that for people who are, you know, trying to deal with that?
When you are building a fire, right, do you move the firewood when it's flamed or when it's cooled off in coals?
Cooled off.
Right? That's the whole premise of this scenario, right? Why are we confronting in the handshake line
Yeah.
Like,
when the flames are still burning.
Yeah, everybody's still tense from that moment. You could 100% see the last 25 seconds. Like,
he knows what he was doing.
You know what he should have done? Oh, sorry, not to cut you off. You know what he should have done was just reach out to Michigan, like, or whatever, got Juwan's number, or called Juwan, like, after, like, the game, the day after, 2 days after, and, like, apologize, or then talk it over. So that way people have time to, you know, process it and stuff like that. It's the same thing, like, when my dad would always say to, like, the dads at, like, my high school when they get angry that the coaches aren't playing, and, like, they'd go up after the game to go confront the coach. It's like, my dad would say, write a letter or write a text. Don't send it till tomorrow morning. And if you really still feel this way, then send it. Don't say it when you're still angry, because that's just stupid.
Like a professional.
Exactly.
That's what would have made the situation better, because the fact that they did it right then, right now, both ways, was totally uncalled for. They both should have known better. Everybody should have known better in that scenario, no matter if you were fined, if you were suspended or not. Everybody was at fault of that scenario. So
this might be the fire, though, that Michigan needed to really pick it up, though.
I was just about to get in that. Like, I agree with the suspension and everything, but as a player, I feel like
senior coach,
those are the coaches you want to play for. Like, that's like the Mike Variable. That's like the new Campbell. Like, you want to play with them. Like, you want to play for them. If they get more fired up than the team, especially going into the tournament, like, I feel like this could be a potential, like, a fire lit under them that gets them going for the tournament and just makes them play for their coach and for the city and everything.
I mean, if we see Wisconsin in the Big Ten tournament, you know that, like, it's gonna be no holds barred.
TV
like, it's
ratings
go
through the entire roof. But no, you're right. I mean, this inspired the team, especially last night on Wednesday when we ended up beating Rutgers, who, I mean, Rutgers is Rutgers to everybody's public mind, but this team 16-11 has beaten 4 top 10 teams this year at upset, especially them in the Big Ten. So this is a legit team. Without Juwan, without Moose, without Terrence, we still ended up getting a 9-point win with Martelli, and we had some guys. Caleb Houston played phenomenal. We finally waited to see that guy play out of his mind at 21 points. Those are the things that you really look for as far as a boost. When you're 15-11, you're wrote down and out, right, where I think we're the first 4 out in bracketology. We're in the last 4 in, first 4 out. We're in the bubble, flipping back and forth. Need to make that stretch to get up and over. And, I mean, this is going to be the stretch to do it, looking at the Wolverines' schedule ahead, because no easy games down the stretch. Yes, we are at home, so it does make it a lot more appealing when we got Illinois, we got Michigan State, we got Iowa, and Ohio State, 3 of those teams in the top 25 as of now, and then Sparty, of course. So these are tough games, but these are games that you can make that run, and you can get forward into the rankings. And it's definitely a scenario that you're looking down the stretch, and it's like, now we're playing well, and now we're playing the best teams that are available. So this is the time to go if you want to be playing in March.
Yeah, I personally believe that tournament's anyone's game. You can be the worst team, beat the best. I mean, it's the odds. We saw that with
UMBC a couple years ago against Virginia. Like,
exactly.
Anything can happen now.
0-0.
Yeah, Michigan go in there and upset, and eventually they could be considered one of the best in the tournament. It just all depends.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. And I mean, the way the Big Ten's kind of shaping out, only a couple more weeks left for them on regular season. Like, Purdue's kind of rocking at the top. I mean, they're tied with Wisconsin, so, like, that win, I think, against Michigan kind of put them up there a little bit. But, like, there's a lot of teams that, like, I've seen play pretty solid that can really shake it up. I mean, Michigan State has a chance to really do something well when they play some of these higher teams. I mean, Rutgers, they just lost to Michigan, so that kind of throws a wrench in what they're dealing with. I mean, you got the teams down low like Nebraska, Minnesota, and like Penn State and stuff, but those teams can really upset. I mean, if I think Indiana plays Purdue one more time, that rivalry game runs deep. I know that that's not, like, records go out the window with that one. Like, when you're playing because you hate the other team, like, you unlock a whole different thing and a whole different gear when you go to play. So Big Ten's gonna be looking pretty solid for these next couple weeks, or for these next 1 or 2 weeks. I think that the regular season is coming to an end, so I'm pretty excited for that. But
yeah, I mean, you look at the teams at the top. I mean, Wisconsin is now tied with Purdue. I know everybody in college basketball would agree Purdue's a better team, regardless of the rankings. So, and then you obviously have Illinois, who can be one of the top 5 teams in the country if they play at their level, or when they play down and lose to unranked teams. I mean, that's happened all year long. And then, I mean, you got a lot of these gritty teams. I mean, Rutgers is one that we just beat. And then you got Ohio State and Iowa, who are just inside the top 25. I think Ohio State's 22 right now. Iowa's 25. I personally see Michigan State as a bigger threat than Iowa. I don't think Iowa's not necessarily a top 25 team personally. I think they're a great team. I don't think they're one of the top 25 teams right now. At 9-7, I'm more worried about Michigan State, especially that they're going to be due for being what I think they're like lost like 4 their last 6 or something like that. I mean, they've been on a little bit of a struggle. I think they've lost 3 in a row, so they're in a spot where like everybody's kind of sleeping on them. I mean, that team's pretty good, so I would be more worried about them than necessarily Iowa or Ohio State, because I mean we beat Iowa pretty well when we played them the first time in Iowa as well, so now we're going to have them at home, so I'm looking forward to that. But I mean, there's going to be a lot of shakeups going down the stretch, especially with a lot of these top teams playing each other. But I think right now Purdue has to be the front runner. I think Wisconsin can be one of those teams. I don't know if they're going to win the conference, but I mean, respectfully, I think they can be one of those teams that can spoil plans in March as a 4 or 5 seed, wherever they end up. I think they could be one that you could be like, yeah, this team gets a stretch run. I mean, we saw it a couple years ago when they had Bronson Koenig beat the number 1 seeded Xavier as an 8 seed. You can see that kind of happening again, but at a much higher seed. And I think this is going to be a really interesting Big Ten tournament down the stretch to see what big guys show up, because we got a lot of big-name players. Kofi Cockburn for Illinois. We got Johnny Davis for Wisconsin. I mean, you got, I guess you could put Frederick in there from Iowa as a big-game player. C.J. Liddell for Ohio State. Which one of those guys are going to show up and put their team to victory? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's some other conferences, too, that are kind of shaking up a little bit. I mean, at the ACC with Duke, Notre Dame, and UNC, they're playing really solid. I know UNC and Notre Dame, aren't they in the top 25 as well? So they're pretty that conference is looking pretty solid to look for. And I mean, there's a lot of other teams too that are pretty exciting to watch, especially with it later in the season. If Gonzaga can finish out well, I think they're basically a lock for number 1 in the tournament. Just kind of depends on how they do with their conference tournament. I mean, Auburn is still rolling. I thought Auburn was kind of going to fall off a little bit, but 25-3, you can't really debate with that at all. But there's a lot of teams that I think could really shake some stuff up. I mean, Baylor's not playing as well as they were last year, but defending champs. I mean, what can you say about that? So there's some. I mean, Texas Tech as well. They've been rolling a little bit. Their home atmosphere is ridiculous. When they host conference play, I think they're going to be doing pretty solid there. And then I mean, the Big Ten teams, like you said already, Murray State's making a return to the top 25. They're 19th right now. So there's some teams that are making some surprising runs, and some teams who are playing a little bit less than what we thought they were going to do at the start of the year. But like you said, once conference tournament rolls around, it's no holds barred, 0-0, winning, you're going home. And
when I watch college basketball in the tournament in the past couple of years, there's just these teams that are known for stepping it up in the tournament. Like, they just play at a different level. Like, I know Michigan State always step up.
They're a tournament team.
Yeah,
they're a big tournament team.
Outside of the 1 year.
They just step it up another level, and a lot of teams are like that. Like Duke, North Carolina, like all these teams. And Gonzaga in the past couple of years, they've all been just stepping up their game as soon as tournament hits, and they go on these runs.
Yeah, and I mean, Gonzaga's been kind of the one team that's like a little bit bad when it comes to tournament time. Like, they used to always get knocked out on Sweet 16, Elite 8, but these past couple of times that they've been there, they've been kind of a new breed of teams, and I think the Bulldogs there are going to be doing pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to run away with the West Coast Conference for sure. I mean, St. Mary's is a good team, but I don't think they're gonna catch Gonzaga anytime soon. But I mean, I think the one conference you can definitely see as being interesting to shake out is I think you would have to say is the SEC, right? With Auburn and Kentucky, both 2 top 6 teams. Joe mentioned Auburn at number 3 right now. Then you got these other teams that are scrapping their way through a lot of good teams. I mean, Alabama has a winning record against the AP poll teams, and you got Tennessee, and then you got Arkansas, who's been phenomenal at home this year. So there's a lot of interesting shakeup there, and all those teams are pretty much within 2 games of each other going down the stretch. So I mean, you got 4 top 20 teams within 2 games of each other in one conference down the stretch before the tournament. That's going to be so fun to watch. I mean, the Pac-12 is also one that I'll be kind of tuning into to see if UCLA can kind of bounce back after their little stretch. They've won 3 in a row, but I mean, Arizona looks red hot, and they're number 2 in the country for a reason, so will they be caught? But I think there's a lot to look forward to, and I mean, you see a lot of these big-name players as well that are making their names, especially for like the Jaden Ivey, the Paul Banchero for Duke, Chet Holmgren for Gonzaga, those guys, how they're going to play in this upcoming tournament, because I think it's going to be interesting to see now when we see with commitments, especially going to the NBA draft. Thank you, Joe. With now the new NIL deals that are going to be going down. Will that have players stay another year to potentially make more money and boost their stock? I mean, what would you say, like with Jaden Ivey, right? You have him as probably a late first round guy. Does he stay another year and move up into a lottery pick spot? I mean, that's kind of what you're looking at right now with some of these teams that are pretty much a shoe-in easily for a top 1 or 2 seed right now with like Purdue in the tournament. And then they got these big name players that are not necessarily given the same look as a lot of these other guys, because I mean, like Oshibwe is definitely going to be a top pick for what he's done this year at Kansas. So that's like a pretty instant, he's probably going to go, right? He's in the later part of his college career, it seems like, as of now. But then you got those other guys that you're like, man, if he stays, it's like the Jalen Suggs of last year. What would happen if Jalen Suggs would have stayed one more year? He'd probably be the number 1 pick right now. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, he'd definitely be more ready for the NBA than he is right now.
But then you also got to look at injuries. You never know. Stay another year, you could get injured. You could just lose all your draft stock right there.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know. It's a little bit of both. I've never really. Oh, I just dropped some. I've never really been a fan of like the one and dones, kind of like on any level, because like I feel like it kind of defeats the purpose of like what college sports is all about.
Put yourself in that position, though.
I know. That's the thing.
You can go make money for a living.
That's the thing. Like I'm not like that good of an athlete where I could like. Where like I can kind of weigh in on that situation, but I mean, as a fan looking at it, like I don't know, I think college athletes or whatever, I don't know, it's a little bit of both, because like beginning a degree is like the safer thing, but also like an extra year, like if like you might be a late first round pick and stuff like that. I don't know, it's a little bit of both. Like you don't really know what's gonna happen to them, but you also like want them to stay another year. But I've never really been a fan of the one and done, so I don't know. Like I said, though, I'm not a student athlete, so I can't really weigh in heavily on the situation.
Yeah, the basis of really what a lot of the decision comes down to is what's your ultra goal in life, and what is your desired outcome of being in college, right? Is it a degree? Is it a national championship? Or is it just a stepping stone? That's I think what it comes down to mentally with a lot of these players. And you look at the scenario that they're put in, especially half the times that we don't understand, right? Someone comes down, says, yeah, here's literally like a cartoon, like 20-pound bag of money's dropped on your kitchen table, right? Are you just going to be like, well, I'll take it 2 years from now? Or maybe
you could lose
next week.
You could lose that chance, though.
What happens, right? That's where a lot of the people that you see go to the draft, and I mean, especially you're like, stay one more year. What are you doing? Like you're gonna. It's like, there's an opportunity, or if you don't take it, it's not gonna be there.
I feel like the problem is there's a lot of players who can really develop and become a way better basketball player in college and stuff, but they get so tunnel visioned on that chance of money that it's like the give or take. Like, yeah, you can have, this $3 million signing bonus right now. And, of course, like you could, if you play your cards right and you get that $3 million, you can live off that for the rest of your life if you invest it properly and all that stuff. But if you want to have a 10-year career in the NBA, 10, 12, 15-year career in the NBA, you should stay like 1 or 2 years just to get 1 or 2 years extra just to get a little bit better and get a little bit more experience with those situations. But like I said, if I had to get faced with that decision, I don't know what I'd choose.
I got a small example for you. So, Zion. Yeah. Imagine he stays another year or 2 more years at Duke. Yeah. Right now he's hurt. After his first or second season in NBA, he has surgery. He hasn't played in a
chickens deep.
Yeah, he hasn't played in a year or two. Like, if he would have stayed and he got that injury in college, he might have never got drafted number 1. He might never made the number 1 paycheck. Mm-hmm. Never got that shoe deal from Nike. Like, he could have missed out on millions for staying.
I think though, when you look at it, like Zion Williamson in college wasn't NBA level talent. Like, you could definitely tell he was
for sure
ready to play. And when he got to the NBA, he showed out. Like, he really played well. But I'm talking about some of these players who are like, who go maybe 2 years and then declare, and then they're a late first round or like a late second round. They've been bounced around the G League, and they are out of the league without making more than $1 million over a 4-year G League career, or something like that, or even less than that. And then if you just stayed one more year in college, then you would have been able to really play a lot better. However, there's guys who are 5th-year seniors, 4th-year seniors who then decided to declare for the NBA, like Luka Garza, who has made a couple of appearances on the Pistons so far, but he's been in the G League so far. And I mean, there's stuff like that where you just gotta, I feel like it's more the self-aware part of it, where players gotta understand, like, am I ready for the NBA? And I think when you see that money and you get like the wide eyes with the dollar signs in your pupils, then you get a little bit blinded by it. But I don't know, that's the one thing for me is like, I don't really have I have a problem, but I don't have the problem with the one and done, as long as they understand, like, I'm ready for it and I can actually like be prepared for it. Because I feel like the safer route is making sure that you can secure a long career in the league, rather than just try to get a quick money out of 3 years and then try to play your cards right with that.
Yeah, the problem with that is the NBA sees the G League as, well, if you're going to be playing in college, like half these college players aren't going to play in the NBA. Like, all these G Leaguers are going to probably make an appearance in the NBA, so why not prep there? That's what they're trying to do with these big contracts, and that was what the overtime league was supposed to kind of resemble, and how that situation turned out kind of I think is what is perceived as what the G League was trying to, or is becoming, but it's not at a high time level yet of, like, yeah, people are gonna go watch G League games, right? Like, we're gonna watch Saban and Livers all play at Motor City. It's like, yeah, but I think would you go watch them if they were still playing at Chrysler, or if they were still playing at yeah, you would. Yeah, that's the big difference of the perception of those two areas.
The only time people really watch G League, or like even like minor league baseball, or like the lower level of a lot of things, is when like you don't have it close. Like for us growing up, like Grand Rapids was a stone throw away. Like I was an hour drive for you. It was about an hour and a half. It was only like 25 minutes down the road from me. So I'd go to Grand Rapids Drive games every once in a while. I'd see these G League players, but like the only reason that you'd go watch those guys is because like you don't want to drive the 3 hours to Detroit.
Exactly, and like the Whitecaps have had great. Like,
they have had
great prospects.
Verlander's played there. Brandon Inge when he was.
So you can watch players that could be stars in the next couple of years, and that's for
I saw
any level.
Torkelson play a couple of years.
I watched Torkelson hit 2 bombs in one game.
He should be, if they get out of this whole lockdown, he might get pulled up this year finally and make a big push for the Tigers.
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, if you want to go one and done and you want to make the journey where you grind out a couple years in the G League and then start playing the NBA, then go for it. But then also it's like the G League is a step above college still. So like you're still putting your body through a lot more stress, I guess. So it's the same. I don't know.
What about LaMelo's route overseas?
I think that's a viable option.
G League though? Wouldn't that be? I mean, they're getting paid way more overseas.
I think it's the same as like I don't know. I wouldn't say a high level college team, but like it's in between high level college and G League. I don't think that the teams over there are as good.
I don't either.
But they're not as they could definitely beat college teams. Like they're probably better than the best college team, but they're not as good as G League teams.
I don't know. I feel like they just don't grow up. Like the majority of the players over there haven't grown up playing.
Yeah.
But then I also just thought of it at this moment. Like I guess they could all come from areas where they play from growing up. Like half of those teams overseas are probably from the U.S. that have played basketball, and just they go over there and then they get paid the big bucks, and then they come to the NBA like LaMelo Ball did. I mean, LaMelo, I guess if you look at him as like an experiment, he's proven to be an all-star this year. He's proven to play at the highest level.
It's given proof that there's other ways to get to the NBA, but like to go back to the one and done thing, it's like, I don't know. The one and done thing is weird because you have some people who are for it, some people who aren't for it, and there's cases where it does work, cases where it doesn't work. It's an ipso facto type thing. It's like the take it or leave it. I don't know. I said it already.
Should they be allowed to go from high school to the NBA again?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's the same thing. That's even worse than one and done.
I'm just saying is like we've seen. I might not agree with it, but I'd say like you can do it because we've seen it before, and we've seen players who are really, I mean, LeBron, Kobe, Tracy McGrady,
Sean Livingston,
a lot of those guys who just went from high school to the NBA. I might not it's the same thing. If you think you're ready for it, then go for it. But if you don't think you're ready to go from high school to the NBA or one and done in college to the NBA, then develop another year and then get ready. Take the risk. I don't think you're going to be... I don't know, because it's the same thing. It's like you could say, I'm going to go to the league, and then you could have a Gordon Hayward type thing where you snap your ankle in half. And if it was something a little bit different, then Gordon Hayward might not be playing anymore. So, like, every time... That's why the thing is, like, if you take another year in college and people say, well, you could get risk injured, you could risk injury just by walking out of your house every day.
Yeah, everything's a risk.
Yesterday would have fell out on my way to the car.
Exactly. That's the one thing. It's like there's no guarantee that you're safe, right? So, like, I don't know. It's the same thing.
Well, yeah, and it's the flip analysis mindset of, well, yeah, there's the risk there, and now so that I should go now. Like, I shouldn't, like, even if I'm not ready, I should still go. I should secure the bag. I should develop. I should be able to do all these things at the highest level to get there, because then they're saying, well, that's the most direct way, right? Yeah. It's like, why do I have to play 2 years in college? Why do I have to play 2 years overseas to get noticed? Why do I have to go to the G League? And all these things to now where you have that direct route, and not only does college sports lose its images, but so do the other developmental leagues, because now they're seen as quote-unquote more important, but now you have some players that are saying, like, well, I mean, I guess if I would have played, I would have played college over the G League. And then it's like, wait, but that's what you just did, right? Like, oh, yeah, college basketball is great. And it's like, no, you're not going anymore. So now that brings the scenario of how much is the risk seen at the outcome. And I think that's where you're getting at, Joe, of where the point that you're making is,
if you're self-aware, then you understand what you are ready for.
Yes. And they're at the level of, I don't think I'm that ready to be an all-NBA type of player or a role player on an NBA team, where they're seeing it as, well, shoot, I got a shot. I might as well try, right? Yeah. And if I don't, well, whatever. Then I'll go back to the G League and I'll figure it out, and then I'll figure out what I need to do.
And they still get paid in the G League.
Exactly.
They make their average is $80,000 a year
Much
or something like that.
More than in college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's on
it's just
evaluated risk.
That's exactly. It's an evaluated risk. It's understanding what you're capable of. If you think you can improve your draft stock, and if you outweigh the risk and you want to do that, then that's what I would prefer someone does. But, like, if someone wants to say, I might not be ready, but we'll see what the time in between me declaring for something and getting ready for it, and if I can improve, then go for it. But I don't know. As long as people don't, like, rush into it, I feel like that's when you get the people who are... When you have people who rush into those decisions to go to the next level, that's when you get the bust, and that's when you get the guys who get injured, like, because they're trying to, prove themselves in things that they don't normally do, and they're putting them in situations that have an enhanced risk factor that have that stuff happen to them.
You mean injured or not ready?
No, like, so what I'm saying is, like, you have people who go, or like you say, how they just go for the NBA or whatever when they might not be ready for it.
Yeah.
And then while they're there, they realize either they're a bust and they don't play well, and then also they put themselves in situations to get better that they normally won't put themselves in, and they'll go up for stuff or they'll do stuff that maybe puts them in an enhanced risk factor that gets them injured. So then that's why we see that sometimes.
Like, are you saying, like, different training methods, or like
things in games that way they're trying to improve themselves because they realize that they can't make the roster or whatever, and they go up for a rebound or something that they normally don't do, or they normally try to do something that they normally don't do, and then they injure themselves. Like, go up for a dunk over two people to try to, like, improve, like, what people think of them or something, and then they land on somebody's ankle. Or if they try to, like, go for a steal and then they by somehow chance slip and fall and they break their arm or something like that. That's what I'm saying, is, like, they'll put themselves in situations where they normally don't put themselves in the game.
They're playing outside of themselves.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, I think I see what you're saying.
But there also could be, like, a cap to the players. Like,
I know
there could be a level to where the player just can't get any better. Like, he could, but his just athleticism just doesn't allow him to get to the NBA level. Like, you can be some of the best college players, but the NBA, it's a different game. It translates. And, like, for, like, Zion right now, he'd probably, if he wants to play 82 games a year, he's probably going to have to slim down a little bit.
He's going to have to lose, like, a little bit of weight.
Like, no more Ben and Jerry's?
Yeah. It's too quick of a game. Like, back when Shaq was playing, the game was a little slower. Now you're scoring 130 points a game. You're constantly running.
Back then, Shaq was just a unit. Like, he wasn't, like, fat or anything. Like, he was just a big guy. 7-foot muscle.
A diesel truck?
Big diesel.
Yes, a diesel truck.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what he was. No, I would agree with that at the point of the bottom line of this whole thing is what's the all-time goal, right? Is it get to the league to get security for your family as fast as possible, or is it I want to be on the NBA top 75 list?
I guess it depends on your background,
right?
Growing up,
that's the biggest thing is what our perception as the public doesn't know those things, right? Like we hear the stories, we hear the 30 for 30s, right? We hear all these players that like you hear on TV that are like, yeah, they did it absolutely perfectly, or man, they took a huge risk and still got it there. But I mean, you're put in scenarios of where, like, especially you have the idea of that's where what they grew up in, and that's not what it was, right? There's some people that are like, oh yeah, like, wait, I mean, this person got everything perfect for them. They went to the perfect school, went to the perfect college, all that sort of stuff. But then there's some that don't, and what are they going to do to get to the league is up to them, and how fast they want to do it is there, because there's some situations that you look at, they're like, yeah, they're doing it for their families, they're doing it for their other reasons than themselves. And no matter where they're at, it doesn't matter. I just want to get to the fastest way possible to help right now. And that's the bottom line of what this whole perception of leaving early, staying in college, going to the G League, going overseas, what method just depends on your situation. And our argument is the public's perception does not line up with what the actual player's perception is.
Yeah. Yeah, because it could really depend on so many factors, because I've noticed a lot of the top high school talent, they go to college, they do great in college, but as soon as they get to the NBA, they're in the G League. And a guy I can think about this is like Mac McClung. You'd see him all over House of Highlights, everywhere on Instagram for his high school dunks, his high school basketball ability. He went to college at Texas Tech, I'm pretty sure, and then
Georgetown, then Texas Tech.
Played great there, and then he went to the NBA, and now he's in the G League, and it's just like he's got to improve a couple things. But yeah, it's just the background. Like, I've noticed a lot of the star players, and like I'll switch sports real quick, but like NFL, Cooper Kupp, you never heard of him until now, and like a lot of NBA players, I never heard of them coming up from high school. I never heard of them in college.
0 stars.
And then they get drafted, and they work hard in the NBA to get that paycheck and get their money, and they just play to their best abilities, and now they're rising stars.
Yep. It all comes down to the ultimate outcome, and that determines the trip to get there. Mm-hmm. And that's all it ever is. That's all there ever was. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. A great episode here. We appreciate Kyle for coming on. It was fantastic.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Kyle. But if you want to be in that seat, you know what to do. Follow us on the MVSP. Shoot us a message and tell us why you should be on the show next. Hey, it might be next week. You might be on joining us for some great championship talk coming up next week. So don't forget to stay tuned. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the MVSP. Subscribe on whatever podcast platform you are on. And until next time.
Take care, everybody.